She ran into a burning building, saved a child, and became a hero overnight. But what if I told you she knew that fire would happen? Would you still be clapping? Because I was. That night, I was sitting in a packed auditorium, surrounded by applause so loud it felt like it was shaking the walls. Cameras flashed, people were crying, some were even standing. And right there, on stage, was Lena Hartwell, 28, the woman everyone was calling a hero. I remember watching her smile. Not a big smile, not arrogant, just controlled. Almost too controlled. She held the microphone with both hands, her voice trembling just enough to feel real. She told the story again, the one the entire internet had already memorized. How she saw smoke, how she didn't think twice, how she ran inside and pulled a 6-year-old boy out of the flames. The crowd ate it up. And I tried to, I really did, but something inside me wouldn't let me. Maybe it was the video. I had watched it earlier that week like everyone else. Millions of views, headlines calling her the Angel of Ashwood Apartments. But there was something about it that stuck with me. Something small. Something I couldn't explain. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Why was the camera already perfectly focused on the entrance before anything even happened? Why did Lena appear so quickly, like she was already waiting? I told myself I was overthinking it. People don't fake things like that. Not something this serious, right? The applause got louder. The hosts stepped forward, calling Lena a symbol of courage in a world that desperately needs it. I felt the pressure to believe it, to feel inspired. And then, a voice, right behind me. Low, calm, almost too calm. Everyone's clapping for the wrong reason. I froze. My heart skipped so hard it actually hurt. I turned, but whoever said it was already moving away, blending into the crowd like they were never there. I sat there, completely still. Did I just hear that? Or did I imagine it? I looked back at the stage. Lena was being handed an award now. People were standing again. But suddenly, it didn't feel like a celebration anymore. It felt like something else, something I didn't understand yet. And the worst part? I had a feeling I wasn't supposed to hear that. But now that I had, I couldn't ignore it. Because what if that voice was right? What if the person everyone trusts the most is hiding the biggest lie? I couldn't get the voice out of my head. Everyone's clapping for the wrong reason. It kept replaying over and over. I tried to focus on the event, but it was pointless. My eyes were on Lena, but my mind was somewhere else, pulling apart every detail I thought I remembered. That video, the timing, the way she ran in, not panicked, not confused, but certain, too certain. I told myself to calm down. This was ridiculous. A woman saved a child. That's it. End of story. But then why did it feel like the story wasn't finished? I stood up, needing air, needing space. As I moved through the crowd, I spotted Daniel Brooks, 41, a local reporter I recognized from TV. If anyone knew the full story, it would be him. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "That rescue, do you know how she ended up there so fast?" He smiled immediately, like he'd answered this 100 times. "Right place, right time. That's what makes it incredible." "But no one else was there that early?" I pressed. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. She went in when no one else did." That answer should have satisfied me. It didn't. People want heroes right now, I realized. They don't want details. They don't want questions. They want something to believe in. I nodded and stepped away, but the unease only grew stronger. Then I saw Caroline Reeves, 35, the boy's mother. She was standing near the stage, clutching a tissue, her eyes red from crying. When Lena stepped down, Caroline rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "You saved my son," she whispered. I felt something twist in my chest. This was real. Her gratitude wasn't fake. Her pain wasn't fake. So how could anything about this be wrong? And yet, as people crowded around Lena, praising her, thanking her, asking questions, I noticed something. Every time someone asked how the fire started, Lena deflected. Every time. She smiled, she redirected, she laughed softly and said all that mattered was getting him out. No specifics, no details, just emotion. And suddenly, that felt louder than anything she was saying. I turned to leave. I needed distance. I needed to think. But the moment I stepped outside, something stopped me cold. There was a folded piece of paper sticking out of my bag. My heart dropped. I didn't put that there. Slowly, I pulled it out. One sentence. That's all it said. Check the timestamp. The fire didn't start when they said it did. I stared at it, my hands going cold. Because now, this wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a warning, and someone wanted me to follow it. The moment the timeline broke, everything else started to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. That note sat on my cable like it was watching me. Check the timestamp. Simple, direct, terrifying. So I did. I opened the viral video again, the one that everyone had seen, the one that made Lena a hero. My eyes locked onto the corner of the screen. 6:10 p.m. I frowned. Wait, that couldn't be right. I pulled up the official fire report released by the city. My hands were shaking now. Fire reported 6:12 p.m. I blinked, then checked again. Same result, which meant one thing. Lena was already inside the building 2 minutes before the fire was even reported. Let that sink in. How do you run into a burning building before anyone even calls it in? I felt my stomach drop. No, maybe I'm missing something, I whispered to myself. Maybe the clocks were off. Maybe the video timestamp was wrong. I needed more, so I kept digging, scrolling, searching, re-watching. And then I found it. Another video. This one wasn't viral. It barely had a few hundred views. Shot from across the street by someone filming casually. No dramatic music, no headlines, just raw footage. I hit play. There was the building, calm, quiet, no smoke, no panic, and then Lena, standing outside, alone. She wasn't rushing, she wasn't reacting, she was pacing, back and forth, looking at her phone, glancing at the entrance, waiting. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What were you doing there?" I whispered. Because this wasn't coincidence anymore. This was positioning. I paused the video and just stared at her frozen frame. That calm expression, that stillness, it didn't match the story we were told, not even close. I needed answers, real ones. So I went back to the only clue I had, the man who whispered to me. It took hours, but I finally found him. Ethan Cole, 38. He didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, he looked like he'd been expecting it. "You checked, didn't you?" he said quietly. I nodded. My voice barely worked. She was there before the fire. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Yeah." Silence. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said something that made my chest tighten instantly. "She used to live in that building." I froze. "What?" "She moved out a few months ago," he continued, "but she still had access, back entrance. Not many people knew that." I felt the pieces shifting now, fast, too fast. "And that day?" I asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. I saw her go in, he said quietly. Alone. Before anything started. My heart dropped. Because now this wasn't just suspicious. It was deliberate. I swallowed hard. But why? I asked. Ethan didn't hesitate. Because nobody was paying attention to her before, and now everyone is. I felt a chill run down my spine, because if he was right, then Lena didn't just find the fire, she created the moment that made her a hero. And if that was true, then what else hadn't we seen yet? The truth doesn't explode all at once. It leaks, and by the time you notice it, it's already everywhere. I couldn't stop thinking about what Ethan said. She went in before anything started. That sentence felt heavier every time I replayed it. So I went back to the beginning, back to the scene, back to where everything supposedly began, the Ashwood Apartments, now partially boarded up, still smelling faintly like smoke and burnt wood. And this time, I didn't go alone. I met Officer Grant Miller, 45, one of the first responders on scene that day. At first, he didn't want to talk. "This case is closed," he said flatly. But when I showed him the timestamp differences, everything changed. His expression tightened, just slightly, but enough. "That's not possible," he muttered. I handed him the printed footage. He stared at it for a long time, too long. Then finally, he spoke. "We were told the fire started from faulty wiring," he admitted. "We didn't question it much. There was pressure, media pressure, public pressure." My stomach sank. "So it wasn't fully investigated?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. That silence was the answer. Then he said something worse. "We rushed it." Everything inside me went cold. We rushed it. Because a hero had already been chosen. Because the story was already too perfect to interrupt. We pulled surveillance footage from a nearby store together, and there it was, clear as day. Lena, entering the building with a bag, before smoke, before panic, before the call. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Show me what was in the bag," I said quickly. They checked debris reports, accelerant residue, small traces, but enough. Enough to start something. Enough to lose control of something. Officer Miller looked at me quietly. "This wasn't accidental," he said. My hands started shaking, because now everything connected. The timing, the access, the footage, the silence. And the boy, the child she saved. I looked at him through the report again. 6 years old. In the only apartment directly above the ignition point. My throat tightened. This wasn't rescue. It was staging. But something still didn't make sense. If she planned it, why risk everything going wrong? Why risk lives? Before Miller could answer, his radio crackled. A voice came through urgently. "Officer Miller, we've got Lena Hartwell scheduled for a live national interview in 10 minutes. I turned slowly toward the screen on the wall, and there she was, smiling, waving, about to tell the story again, as if nothing was coming, as if everything we just uncovered didn't exist. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. We weren't catching up to the truth. We were already late. The moment the truth finally speaks, everything else goes silent. The interview started like every other. Bright lights, calm smiles, controlled questions. And there she was, Lena Hartwell, 28, sitting perfectly in frame, dressed like nothing in the world could touch her. "Tell us again," the host said warmly. "What went through your mind when you heard the fire?" Lena smiled softly. "That's the thing. I didn't think. I just acted." The audience in the studio reacted exactly like before. Soft applause, emotional nods, admiration. But this time, I wasn't watching alone. I was sitting with Officer Miller and 2 investigators, and we weren't watching a story anymore. We were watching a confession waiting to collapse. Miller leaned forward. "This is it," he said quietly. Then it happened. The studio doors burst open mid-broadcast. A voice cut through the air. "Lena Hartwell, you are under arrest for arson and reckless endangerment." The studio froze. The host went silent. Lena blinked once, just once, and for the first time, her perfect composure cracked. "What?" she whispered. Police stepped in, handcuffs clicked, and just like that, her story stopped being a story. Back at the station, everything came out. The fire wasn't meant to spread. She had set a controlled ignition point, planning a quick hero rescue moment. But the fire moved faster than she expected. Out of control. Real danger, real risk, real consequences. And instead of stopping it, she ran inside anyway, because by then, cameras were already watching, and she couldn't lose the moment. When I saw the confession replayed later, I didn't feel satisfaction right away, just silence. Because people had celebrated her, loved her, trusted her. Caroline Reeves, the boy's mother, watched the arrest footage with shaking hands, the same hands that once held Lena in gratitude. Now she couldn't even look at the screen. "He was almost killed for this," she whispered. That broke something in me. Not just anger, but disbelief. Within hours, everything collapsed. Lena's sponsors publicly cut ties. Her social media accounts were wiped. Her interviews were pulled from every platform. The city launched an emergency review into how the case was misclassified. Investigators admitted the fire should have been treated as suspicious from the beginning. Daniel Brooks, the reporter who defended her, issued a live apology on air, his voice shaking as he admitted they wanted the story too badly to question it. Ethan Cole became a key witness, protected, but interviewed repeatedly. And Lena? She was charged formally, facing years in prison. No more applause, no more spotlight, no more story. Just consequences. Days later, I returned to Ashwood Apartments. The building was repaired on the outside, but you could still see the marks if you looked closely. Life had already moved on around it. People were walking, laughing, living. But I stood there longer than I should have, because I kept thinking about how easy it is, how fast a lie becomes truth when enough people believe it. A hero isn't always a hero. Sometimes she's just the person who got there first. I turned away from the building and started walking. No music, no dramatic moment, no twist left, just reality settling in. And as I walked, I realized something simple. Truth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives after the applause.